Today, you become a 34-year-old recovering online gambler. The first time I tapped that bet button at 19, I won 30,000. 16 years later, I emptied every bit of my parents' savings in a single night. My name is Chun Yen. I was born in a small industrial town in central China. My father worked as an engineer at a chemical plant, and my mother taught math at a local primary school. Our home was clean and stable. From the time I could count, my parents drilled into me that numbers had to add up and accounts had to be clear. My weekly allowance was 10 yuan, and I was expected to record what was left in a small blue ledger notebook. In third grade, I lost a whole pouch of glass marbles to my deskmate during recess. When I came home, my mother lectured me harshly for almost an hour. She told me the word gambling was something I must never let touch my life. I nodded and promised. Inside, I thought she was making far too much fuss over one little pouch of marbles. How much could they really be worth, and what could a child losing them possibly lead to in the end? By middle school, I was ranking inside the top 10 of my grade. I was especially strong in science. My teachers said this kid thinks fast on his feet, and that I clearly had the kind of brain meant for tough exam problems. That gift of thinking fast turned out to hurt me the most in the end. For years, I quietly believed I could outsmart any system put in front of me. I was never able to truly accept that I might simply be wrong. In my final year of high school, I tested into a decent science university in another province. My parents hung a string of red firecrackers at the gate of our compound, and the neighbors all came over to congratulate them. There were 6 of us in the dorm. I had the upper bunk. The lower bunk belonged to a guy from the northeast called Akai. In the very first week of school, he pulled me over to his bed to watch a Premier League match. Akai told me everyone back home played this stuff. Win, and you treat the room to barbecue. Lose, and you settle up next time. Then he opened his phone and quietly showed me a website with rows of green and red odds. To me, those odds looked like an applied math problem waiting to be solved. My first try, I only put in 50 yuan. The next morning, I woke up and the account showed an extra 180 yuan sitting there. That feeling was strange. It was even more intense than finally cracking a difficult problem. I sat on the edge of my bunk, just staring at that little string of numbers for a long time before I went out to get breakfast. By my second year, I was studying the data seriously. I tracked injuries, home and away records, even weather. I built my own spreadsheet of expected values. My hit rate, honestly, was not bad at all for an amateur. I started believing I was the smartest person in this whole game. The few roommates who placed bets alongside me began treating me like their personal strategist whenever a big match weekend was coming up. The summer before my third year, I stayed on campus tutoring high schoolers instead of going home. The money I earned never made it into savings. Almost every yuan went straight back into that green-themed page on my phone. In the winter of my 19th year, during the Champions League semifinals, I placed a long-shot parlay. The next morning, my phone lit up with a payout notification of 30,000 yuan landing in my account. It was the first time I ever saw a 5-figure number sitting in something I owned. I walked out alone to the running track and quietly circled it 3 times in the cold before I dared go back to the dorm. I treated Akai to a hot pot dinner that weekend. I shipped my parents a brand new washing machine. The remaining 20-something thousand yuan I did not save. Within a week, every yuan went right back onto the platform. At the time, I genuinely did not see this as gambling. In my own head, it was a high IQ side hustle. I told myself I understood probability better than every retail trader staring at stocks during their lunch break. At 21, I graduated and joined a small local software company as a developer. The salary was around 8,000 a month. By then, my so-called side hustle was already pulling in 5 figures most months on the side. That year, I bought a new phone, moved out of my shared apartment, and rented a small studio of my own. The photos I posted on social media were all stadiums, glasses of whiskey, and late-night cityscapes from my window. At 22, I once stayed up until 4 in the morning. I placed a single bet of 80,000 yuan and won. I collapsed onto my desk crying. For the very first time, I truly believed I was someone chosen by fate. I started thinking that going to the office was a complete waste of my time. By day, I would stare at my code pretending to focus. The work that actually mattered to me only began once I got home and locked my door. I never told my parents the truth. Every spring festival, I claimed it was project bonus money. I bought my mother a gold bracelet and replaced their old TV. They walked around our complex telling neighbors I was doing well. For 2 whole years, I genuinely believed I was winning at life. Looking back now, that was simply the platform letting me taste the sweet part first. Those were already the most dangerous years of my entire descent. At 23, the World Cup arrived. I lost 3 large bets in a row. In half a month, my account dropped from a 6-figure balance all the way down to 4 figures. My hands shook every time I refreshed the page. My very first instinct was not to stop. It was to find a way to win it all back in one shot. That same night, I placed another huge bet to chase the loss. By the next morning, the balance had hit 0 for the first time. At 24, I started borrowing money. First credit cards, then online lenders. I downloaded 7 or 8 loan apps. Each one charged a brutal upfront fee, and each new loan was meaner than the one before it. At first, I tried to calculate the math of those predatory loans in my head. After a while, I realized the numbers were no longer something I could track. The hole only grew bigger every single time I tried to add it up. At 25, I quit my job. I told everyone I wanted to start my own thing. The truth was simpler. The company had finally caught me placing live bets on my work computer during meetings, and they let me leave quietly. I lied to my parents and said the new project was going great. Every month, I would still send them a living stipend on time. The money came from yet another loan app, borrowed at a higher rate than the one before it. At 26, I could no longer afford even the rent on my studio. I moved into a partition room in an urban village for 700 yuan a month. The walls were so thin I could clearly hear the snoring next door. At 27, I quietly mortgaged the small apartment my parents owned back home. I forged what needed forging at a backstreet finance company. They never told my parents. I told myself I would buy it back fast. Within 2 weeks, every yuan of that loan was gone. I still remember exactly how my hand shook when I confirmed the very last bet. By that point, I had already lost any real ability to stop on my own willpower alone. At 28, collection calls began reaching my parents. My mother phoned me crying, asking if something terrible had happened to her son. I could not bring myself to answer. I hung up and turned the phone face down. At 29, I could not stay in the city any longer. Several lenders were sending people to my door almost daily. One night, I bought a single one-way train ticket south and left without telling a single person I knew. At 30, I followed an old contact down to a small county on the Yunnan border. There were people over there organizing online betting operations, recruiting young men to push odds, and pull in players from inside China. In a place like that, they took your phone the moment you arrived. Your passport went into a steel safe in their office. Every day you sat at a computer pitching betting accounts and luring players from back home. I worked there for 8 months. With my own eyes, I once saw a boy 2 years younger than me get walked out for not hitting his quota. He was led toward a back door we were not allowed near. Nobody ever saw him again. At 31, I faked an illness to ask for time off. One night, I climbed over a forested ridge and slipped into a small town on the other side of the border. For half a year, I survived washing dishes in a back kitchen. At 32, I ran into old Zhang from the operation at a cross-border bus stop. He told me 3 of the guys I used to share a dorm with had stopped coming back from their border runs. None of them had been seen since. That night, I crouched outside the bus station and quietly threw up onto the cracked pavement. For the first time, I truly understood. The road I had been walking all these years was no longer a road I could turn around on. I asked a fellow countryman to deliver a message home. I told my parents to go to the police themselves and tell the whole truth about the apartment loan. Whatever was left of the debt and the trouble, I would carry alone. At 33, I walked alone into a Chinese police liaison post on the border. I sat down across from an officer and told him every single thing I had done over the past 15 years, one piece at a time, no excuses. The day I came home, my mother was waiting on the platform of our small town station. She had grown thin in the months I was gone. She did not yell at me. She only said, "Come home first, eat a hot meal, talk later." At 34, I checked myself into a gambling addiction rehabilitation center in our city. I signed a 3-month closed treatment agreement. I handed over my phone at the front desk. Every week, I had to keep a journal. There I met people whose stories were even harder than mine. One man had bet away his wife's entire dowry. Another had gambled off his daughter's college tuition. Listening to them somehow made me feel calmer for once. After I came out, I took whatever work I could find. Construction sites, plastering walls, food delivery on a scooter. Every month, I paid down the debt first. Whatever little remained, I quietly added to a brand new bank book. If today I could say one sentence to the version of me at 20, I would say this. The very first time you opened that green-tinted page on your phone, the system had already won every yuan you would ever earn from it. That was the life of a 34-year-old recovering online gambler. If you have ever walked a similar arc of fate, leave a comment. Next episode, vote a top-tier card-counting gambler or be international arms dealer. This is fictional dramatization for entertainment only, not based on any real person or event.